Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from lovely Cape May, New Jersey via SHR Media and streaming live on Facebook. My guest today is the one and only Ms. Andi Buerger. I think this is her third visit to Money Talk with Melanie. She's the executive director for Beulah's Place, and she's going to talk to us about her brand new book, A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue. So I'm really excited to have her on the show today. But before I get to that, a little bit of housekeeping. I always forget to do my housekeeping. I have all these notes in front of me as I prepare for the show, and then I start the show and I never look at them. So I decided that I would actually try to adhere to my notes today and make sure that I got my housekeeping in. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, on Facebook, it's at Money Talk with Melanie on Facebook. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Money Talk Mel. Now that's for the show. Now, if you dare to follow my political musings, and I say if you dare because I am not shy about my political leanings, and so if you dare to follow my political musings, you can do so at NJGOP Diva on Twitter. I only have a couple more. If you wanted to friend me on Facebook, I only have maybe, 5 or 6 more spaces. I keep cleaning my list up as I go along, but you can friend me on Facebook at Melanie Teresa. I always, for some reason, forget to do that housekeeping part. And of course, I want to thank my sponsors. Tax Mama, Ms. Eva Rosenberg, pick up her book, Trump Tax Cuts, which she is actually working on a revision of that book because some things have changed in the tax laws as they tend to do every year. So there's a revision coming out soon. But in the meantime, if you are interested in becoming a tax preparer, then Tax Mama is also the person that you want to contact at irs.school, and you want to take her classes for sure. So I wanted to make sure that I handled that. And I want to say hello to people in the Facey chat. Doug, Mike, DeCarlo, how are you? I hope you all are doing well. Now, I'm glad, let's see, I'm going to go back to my notes and make sure that I'm adhering to my schedule. Is there anything else that I was supposed to say? No, that's it. Now, in Money Talk News, let's talk a little bit about this coronavirus outbreak. It is expected to cost the world's airlines a combined $29.3 billion in revenue this year. That's to the entire global industry as a whole. This is according to the International Air Transport Association. They said that the travel demand is set to decline for the first time since 2009. And that carriers around the world have been forced to reduce or suspend their flights as a result of the virus, which I believe that. They're expecting airlines in the Asia Pacific region to take a combined $27.8 billion revenue hit. That is crazy. And a $1.5 billion for those who are outside of Asia. That is crazy how much money this coronavirus is costing the economy. And I'm concerned about it also because of how our relationship with China, of course. So that's probably going to have a pretty negative effect on the economy if we don't get a hold of this soon. Hi, Ron Edwards in the Facey chat. Welcome. Have a brand new Ron Edwards notebook coming your way when we go to the break. Always excited about that. And I like to wait until the time that I play it. When you guys hear me play the Ron Edwards notebook, it's the very first time that I'm hearing it. I know that it's always really good. And I like the live reactions because I'm always like, every Ron Edwards notebook, I don't know why, I'm like, I can't believe he said that. But they're just so good. What else in the Money Talk news? Independent brokerage houses might be on their way out. Those zero commission trading houses that you hear of, like E-Trade. Morgan Stanley just announced a deal to buy E-Trade. Financial, and they're thinking that might be kind of the death blow for the industry. They had already been in a price war with they were in a price war with Charles Schwab, and it's a $13 billion sale of E-Trade. Is the biggest acquisition by Wall Street Bank since the financial crisis. This is according to Reuters and to Reuters. According to Reuters, and they're granting Morgan Stanley access to over 5 million clients. That's amazing. So we might be going; those discount brokerage houses might be going by the wayside. I don't know if that's fortunately or unfortunately. I guess it depends on the way you look at it. Let's see. Nissan. This is pretty cool. Actually, before I get to Nissan, I need to talk about the Gap. The Gap is joining forces with the resale platform ThredUp. And if you've never heard of ThredUp, I wonder if ThredUp's interested in becoming a sponsor, because I use ThredUp myself personally. And if you've never heard of it, it's like an online thrift shop is the best way to describe it. And I love ThredUp. I sell my clothes on ThredUp, and the way you sell the clothes is very convenient. Well, the Gap is merging with ThredUp. I shouldn't say merging with ThredUp, but they're joining forces with ThredUp to encourage customers to drop off their used clothing in exchange for credits that they can use at Gap store. So what usually happens with ThredUp is you sell your clothes, you send them your clothes, they will sell them and donate whatever doesn't sell. But the money that you make on a clothes, they'll put it in your PayPal account. It's really cool. So a lot of your, like if you have designer clothes that you either don't fit you or you shouldn't be wearing anymore or just plain look ugly on you, send them to ThredUp and make a little money on the side. I love ThredUp. I use them quite often. I've actually never bought from ThredUp, but I've sold a bunch of my stuff for ThredUp. So maybe you're wearing something that I sent in if you shop at ThredUp. I've been meaning to, but I have enough clothes. Clothes need to be going out my door, never coming in at this point. I don't need another. I really don't need another thread of anything. Andi is holding on the line. She can hear me. She's chiming in occasionally, but I don't need another. Every time I think about buying something else, I have this schwanky event that I'm going to this weekend, and I started to buy a new jumpsuit, and I thought to myself, Melanie, you don't need another thread of anything. So I declined, but that jumpsuit I saw is still in my mind. But if I'm going to do that, I should go to ThredUp and buy it and get it cheaper. Okay, one more news report. Nissan is doing something really cool where they're launching a subscription service. Their pilot program is in Houston, Texas, and they're looking to court millennials who are less inclined to buy or lease their own cars. There's two tiers. There's a $699 monthly option for a choice of 4 cars, or an $899 option for additional 6 vehicles. This is the latest to do a trial subscription-based model, allowing drivers to swap cars on demand, joining Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Porsche, and others. So they're more of the, I guess you would say, the mid-range rather than the luxury range. That's kind of cool. And apparently dealers are not real happy about that because they claim that it undercuts their business model, and I would agree that it does. But it's the free market, gang, so get with the program. Okay, I have one more thing to add because I can't let this go even though we're up against the break. As someone who teaches 15-year-olds on a regular basis, there's a recent survey across 41 countries that suggests, hold on to your pearls on this one, that 15-year-olds' career aspirations lie mainly in traditional roles like doctors, teachers, business managers, or lawyers. And in fact, that they have unrealistic expectations of what work will be available. This is according to The Economist. I thought that was an interesting article from The Economist because kids don't understand that they should probably research what their options are. The fastest growing vocations are like user support technician, things like that. And on another note, they're saying that more boys than girls expect to work in science and engineering, and that's always been the case. I wish more girls got involved in STEM. I teach computer applications myself on the collegiate level, and there's hardly any girls there, let alone brown girls. So brown girls, if you want to meet, smart guys, go into the STEM track. That's what I'm talking about. That's whenever I talk to my computer students and they're thinking about taking my class as an elective, I'm like, where do you think the next Steve Jobs is, man? He's in my computer class. So ladies, if you want to marry well, I'm just saying, go to the computer classes and make some good money yourself. Okay. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. I'm broadcasting live from Cape May County, New Jersey via SHR Media. My guest this hour is Andi Buerger, Executive Director of Beulah's Place, and she has a brand new book out called A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue. I'm very excited to have her on the show. But right now, coming your way is a brand new Ron Edwards notebook, and we'll be right back in a couple minutes.
It's bad enough that Satan comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but knowing that Democrats are on the same evil mission should be a wake-up call for all Americans. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards, with the next page in Edwards' notebook. We all know that Democrats promote the wholesale murder of unborn and newborn babies, but now some Democrats support the killing of childhood innocence via indoctrinating children as young as 7 years of age into thinking that they may want to be something other than what they were born to be. Democrats are still trying to destroy our inalienable right to bear arms for protection, and most Democrats in political office seek to steal more of your hard-earned money via legal government edict and are hoping to eventually replace parental authority with intrusive government oversight. If Democrats get their way, they will kill your ability to achieve economic success via overregulation. In fact, Democrats not only call everything that is good bad, but only support destruction in every area of life, ranging from family to national security. Wake up, my fellow Americans. The republic you save may be your own. I'm Ron Edwards. Check out theronedwards.com for news updates and other great stuff.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Don't just pass the IRS exams. Why not pass them all and get a solid tax education too? Visit irsexams.school and let the Tax Mama staff get you started today. All our live and self-study tax courses offer you the convenience to study online on your own time and have everything you need to succeed. Tax Mama teaches you tax law, practice, and representation from the ground up. That's irsexams.school. Why wait? Get enrolled today in our premium course or the self-study class. That's irsexams.school. It's way more than just a review course. It will improve your entire future.
Mike Bloomberg is the only Democratic presidential candidate that has a real plan for black youth and education. It's called the Greenwood Initiative.
We'll make public college tuition free for all low-income students. We'll forgive college loans for students who were exploited by failed for-profit colleges.
Mike knows investing in our teachers is investing in our children.
We'll also recruit more black and Latino teachers, as we did in New York City, because studies show they can make all the difference. And we'll also invest much more in heavily historically black colleges and universities, because many of the HBCUs are struggling.
And the first step to achieving generational wealth is taken in the classroom.
We'll incentivize state and localities to create financial literacy classes.
Mike will get it done. Visit MikeForBlackAmerica.com to learn more.
They're concrete proposals that we can afford and that we can get done, and we will. I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
And welcome back. This is Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest this hour is the one and only Andi Buerger. She's an author and executive director for Beulah's Place. And she's going to talk to us today about her brand new book, A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue. Before I bring her on, I just want to tell you a little bit about Andi. She's herself is a victim of severe abuse, is a highly sought out inspirational speaker and international advocate for those who cannot speak for themselves. She travels extensively to create greater awareness of our nation's child trafficking epidemic and the devastating cost to America's future as a result of unchecked abuse and exploitation. Andi's energetic, candid style guarantees a memorable experience, which is so true. And without further ado, Andi Buerger.
Hey, Melanie, thanks for having me on. Such an honor.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the show again. I think this is your third visit. And when I checked my notes, I believe I had you on exactly a year ago today. It said, I
believe you did.
I think it said February 20th. I couldn't believe it.
Well, it was meant to be. See, we should make this our anniversary every year.
I like it. I want to show, if you're watching this via Facey, I want to show everybody the cover of the book. It's got a beautiful cover. The name of the book is called A Fragile Thread of Hope. And before we even move on to talking about what the book is about, I'm thinking to myself that if you're listening to the show, you may be saying, okay, the show is called Money Talk with Melanie. Why in the world is she talking about child trafficking on a money show? And some of you may have figured it out or not, but I'm going to let Andi tell you about the money that is involved with child trafficking, just to get that out of the way and know that we have this conversation framed and why the money is an issue, Andi.
Yes, it is the issue right after the depraved acts that happened, because globally, Melanie, human trafficking is approximately $160 billion industry globally, and out of that, $99 billion is sex trade, sex trafficking. It is a huge illegal enterprise all over the globe. But here in the U.S., we're at about $34 billion, and it's growing. It's growing so fast that if we do not intercede or do not take greater action, it will overtake drug trafficking in a number, probably 2-3 years, if even that, as the number one illegal trade in America. And that's what we will be known for.
You know, that is really a scary prospect. I want to think that stuff only happens in other countries. Like that's not happening in the United States. But you just very clearly, I mean, it's illegal here in the United States. You hear about it happening in other countries. You hear about, because in other countries, this child trafficking thing is legal. But to know that it's happening here in the United States into that kind of economic proportion, it's just, I want to think that the people here are better than that, and I am wrong.
I would like that too. I think a lot of Americans would. Sometimes when I speak, they're just completely overwhelmed and shocked that this actually happens in their neighborhood.
Mike Bloomberg is the only Democratic presidential candidate who understands that wealth creation and the current racial wealth gap is linked to past racism, and has a plan to address the impact on Black America.
The crimes against Black Americans still echo across the centuries, and no single law can wipe out that slate clean. The time has come, I think, to fully commit ourselves to acknowledging our history and righting our country's wrongs, and that's exactly what I will do as president.
It's called the Greenwood Initiative.
1, we will help 1 million more Black families buy a house. 2, we will double the number of Black-owned businesses. 3, we will help Black families triple their wealth over the next 10 years to an all-time high.
Mike will get it done. Visit MikeForBlackAmerica.com to learn more.
They are concrete proposals that we can afford and that we can get done, and we will. I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
The good news is we have a chance to turn the tide, or at least take a chunk out of that business in this country and be the country that says, hey, this is enough. We are not going to allow this, and this is what we're going to do about it.
Thank goodness. So what are we going to do about it? What is it that people like you are doing about it? What's happening to fight human trafficking?
Well, one of the things that we've seen in the past 3 years from the top down, from the President of the United States, some other influential leaders, not enough of them, but some of them are stepping forward to say, we need to do a better job. 1, we need to do a better job of identifying the traffickers, whether they're politically protected or they have money or they're the guy on the street or they're the guy behind the alley, whatever it is. And actually the profile now is much younger than it used to be. It used to be a Caucasian male with his own family behind a gated community, 35 to 45 years old. Well, now that profile's dropped to more like 25, to 35-year-olds. And so, as any background. And so we've expanded. But so the one thing is acknowledging we have this issue, the elephant in the room, so to speak, and then accepting responsibility, saying, hey, we're not doing enough. So identifying the traffickers, and once they are caught, keep them the heck in jail. Keep them locked up, because they have stolen innocence, and they have stolen lives, and they have ruined families. The victim never truly recovers. I mean, you can get better, you can find a new normal, but it will never be the same as before the day that happened. Okay? So they need to be locked up and lose their rights, period.
Amen, for sure. Like, and it seems to me, and maybe it's my imagination, but it seems like these crimes are just not taken seriously as they should.
Exactly. And when a young person comes forward, whether they're 14 or 12 or 16 or 19, they need to truly be listened to. Yes, vet out the circumstances, get the information, do due diligence. That's what we should do. But at the end of the day, someone who's willing to step up and speak, that is someone to be taken with great respect. Just like someone who's willing to go through a rape test is serious about the fact that they've been violated. Not many people will do that. It's humiliating. It's extensive. And so when somebody is willing to have the courage to step forward and speak, I was never believed. I was trafficked for 17 years before there ever was a term back in, the 60s and early 70s where they barely talked about child abuse. But I would never have shared that. And we'll get to why I wrote this book in a minute, but back to the business and what we can do. So after they are, incarcerated and hopefully kept there, no early release, no privileges. If it were up to me, Melanie, I'd put them in solitary confinement for the rest of their life. But, I'm not the one in charge, but because they have taken that life without necessarily killing it. And then there are those who will kill a child or will kill the victim because they've outlived their usefulness. So that's the brutality of it. The hope is that someone like myself who can speak to it, who can create a program like Beulah's Place, and there are many people all around the country trying to do the right thing, but we also need the resources. We need the funding that specifically allocates the dollars to the types of services and programs that a sexually abused victim needs. It's very specific. It's not just general counseling. It's not just general MD work. It's a lot of things that go into helping that victim rehabilitate and move forward.
And now you speak from, unfortunately, the reason why you're able to speak so powerfully and so thoroughly on this matter is because you're speaking from experience. Tell the audience a bit about your background.
Sure. Yes. So I was trafficked by immediate family members from 6 months old to 17 years old. And they were immediate, extended, and other people involved in that. Again, before there was a term for it, there were ugly names that were attached to what that activity was. But basically, it was so great, the violations, the beatings, the mental, all of that abuse. By the time I was 5 years old, I tried to commit suicide for the first time because I thought I would be better off dead than going back into that house. And I just wanted to be at peace. And my birth mother made it clear that my days were numbered. And so God had a different plan, and he interceded. When I looked up into the sky and I saw this huge blue sky, I thought, who made that? Somebody had to make that sky. How big is it? How far does it go? Is it bigger than the people that are hurting me, that are causing my life to be so miserable, so desperate that I'd rather jump out in front of a car, which I was trying to do, and kill myself?
Now, I want to be clear, because I don't want this point to get glossed over. A lot of times I think that when we think of human trafficking, we always think of it in terms of being a stranger. But who were these people that were trafficking you? I can't even, it's hard for me to even say trafficking you as a 5-year-old, as a 6-month-old. That just, it is so beyond my comprehension.
It is. It's huge. It's taken me almost 6 decades to deal with it myself. But to your point, my birth mother was the primary sexual predator and abuser, and then my birth father was second. They just were very evil people and weak people. And then my birth brother, cousins, I think an uncle and a couple of other people. So in my view, Melanie, if someone takes a child, they're the adult, and they take a minor child anywhere, transport them by car, bus, anywhere, to the piano teacher's house, wherever, and they know what's going to happen to that child when they're there, when they leave that child. To me, that is trafficking, even if there's no payment for it. I'm sure that if my birth mother thought she could have profited from it, she would have done it. But in that culture, that day and age, they just didn't even consider such things. So that's what happened, and it got less as I got older because it's harder to control. But again, they weren't sophisticated. It was perversion at its worst. And so those immediate members, extended family members, the other people, there's always someone who knows when a child is being abused. It's whether they have the courage to speak up. But sexual abuse, I was told that I would be dead if I even tried or even thought about talking about what happened to, in that home or in the car or the bathrooms or wherever. So I never did. I believed it. I was terrified my entire childhood. And then when I tried to take my life that day when I was 5 years old, and I just felt like God was saying, I have a plan for you. So I went back up to the garage and leaned against the door, and I just said, if you keep me alive, I'll do whatever you call me to do. And I was 5, so I didn't really understand the ramifications or how much more pain would be involved or how long that would be. But what I do know is that God didn't cause those people to hurt me. They chose. They had free will, and they chose to do evil, just like we can choose to do good, or as a nation, we can choose to do nothing. And doing nothing, in my opinion, Melanie, is just as bad as, doing bad.
That's a sin of omission, I think.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And so people who can help, so we'll get to that. So by the time I was 17, my birth mother, that was the last time she tried to kill me by trying to choke me to death. And the only decent thing my birth father did, amazingly, that day was he pulled her off of me before she snapped my neck.
Wow. And is that when you were able to get away?
That is when I was able to get to college and get a little distance between us. But I was still mind control, even though I turned 18. And this is one thing a lot of people don't know. Why didn't you just leave? Why didn't you just go? I had no money. I had no transportation. We had been alienated and kept away from any other good family members that might have been out there who had no clue what was going on. I didn't have friends like most people have when they're in school. We moved around, and I moved schools a lot because it's harder for someone to find out about an abuser if you keep moving. And so that's what happened. So I went to college and graduated early and decided I was going into the workforce. But again, in that day and age, the pressure to honor your father, honor your mother, family is everything. It was very confusing. It was very hard. So I kept trying to have a relationship as an adult, but there just wasn't really a way to do that. And then I went to law school.
Now,
I'll save all the kids.
No, before we go to law school, I want to back up a little bit again. And
Sure.
I want to talk about your parents just real quickly. From the outside looking in on your family, in your opinion, is there any way that a teacher could have known or other people could have known that just didn't say anything that could have stepped in? Like, how did your family look from the outside? Did it look like June Cleaver, or was it obvious that there were things going on and people just ignored it? How did that look?
That's a great question. My birth mother was a teacher, and she didn't touch any kids at school. She saved it for my brother and I. But she was a teacher, so she was looked at very highly because teachers were very respected.
Not
at
now.
that time. Not now, but then, they still were. And then my birth father was a salesman, Chicago Joe kind of style, living loose, living fast. And so there were always problems because he was usually with the secretary or somebody else, which didn't help the situation at home because, the fights between him and my birth mother, all that stuff. But again, on the outside, he cleaned up well. And on occasion, they would even go to church, for show.
Exactly. And that's exactly my point. And I recall that from the last time we spoke. And I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out because I want the audience to know and understand that, sometimes if something seems a little bit off, even though from the outside looking in at first glance, everything looks fine. If you get that feeling in your gut that something's off, and I would bet a year's salary that each one of us probably has somebody in mind when we think of that right now. That family that looks like everything is perfect, but something in your gut tells you something's not right. Take a look,
Absolutely. And there are people, somebody always knows, and it wasn't until many years later, till I was probably in my 30s and I was getting counseling, I actually had some people who knew my birth mother, who were teachers with her or whatever, and they were like, we are so sorry. We knew something was kind of off, but, we really didn't know what to say, and so nobody did.
And so nobody said a word. So let's continue with when you went to law school. I didn't mean to interrupt there, but I thought it was an important point that I wanted the audience to hear about, your family dynamic and how it looked.
Right, because in truth, the traffickers are very, very common looking. They're very stealth. They're not the grubby, like you said earlier. They're not the international, grubby looking guys. There are predators that are paid as college students to target girls or young men for a trafficker. They get paid like $1,500, $2,000 to chummy up to somebody and then recruit them or groom them for trafficking. So it is not what we were led to believe by movies years ago. So fast forward back to law school, I went because I thought, maybe I could save kids like me. Maybe I could save somebody from having to go through what I went through. But again, that was kind of around the OJ and Menendez era, things like that. And what I saw as I went through school and was an intern were judges sending kids back to the abusing parent because every child should be with their mother, even if she's the abuser. Or, they would not put the abuser, maybe the dad or the uncle's the abuser, and they'd get reprimand or probation or something, or go to a class, right? And so I saw that the system was not really seeking justice. It was more political. It was more about money, the same thing that had been problems in my life before. So I took my law school degree and I went back to business where I felt I could do more good. And that's where it all started.
And so is that when that's where your quest to kind of get this thing not fixed, if you will, but to do something about kids who are being trafficked? Is that where your journey to do that began?
I had thoughts about it early on. I didn't know how to execute. And then unfortunately, I married an abuser. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. But I married an abuser, had a rough marriage, and struggled to get through that and still deal with my own things. That was when I first started to get help. I went to therapy because the identities and memories and things were coming back very quickly after I married my ex-husband. And so it took about 3 years of counseling. And at the end of that time, I learned, who I was a little bit more and how to communicate better and how to stand up for myself. And I realized I never would have married him had I been healthy. But the divorce happened. And then a couple of years later, met the most amazing human I've ever known, my husband, Ed. We're going to be married 20 years this year, so I'm pretty excited.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you. And he was really, we talked about helping kids. We started teaching Sunday school to the 9th, 10th, 11th graders, where we felt the teens really needed extra help going through that tricky transition from child to, adult and all the hormones and stuff. And then we helped in other ways. We always served kids. And then in 2008 is when we actually made the plan I had had a traumatic brain injury in 2008, and I was not able to work the way I used to as a corporate trainer. And I thought, what am I going to do? And so we were serving meals to the homeless at Thanksgiving that year, and a few gals came in, and they had newborn babies. And Melanie, I'm telling you, I thought they were 18, maybe, but they were so young, and they had babies, and they were sleeping in their cars. And I thought, that's just wrong. You know, we just have to do something for the teens in our area anyway, and find out, you know, why they're on the street, what's happening, and how can we help. So as we processed it, well, if we feed them, then what happens? Where do they go? Okay, well, what if we feed them and then maybe shelter them for a few days? Well, then what happens after that? So out of all of that came a little website that we posted in April of 2009 with the help of a friend. I was still recovering from the brain injury, and we put out our vision. And we said, this is what we see. This is what we want to do in this community for these kids that are at risk. They're homeless. There's a reason they're on the streets, and we need to find out why. And so we did, and we stepped out in faith, raised the money to become a 501c3. And from there, we established Beulah's Place, which now helps us to provide temporary shelter services to these at-risk homeless teen boys and girls that have absolutely no safe person in their life, no safe adult, no extended family, no one that will intercede for them. And they run to the streets for safety. And as you and I know, the streets are not safe, but that is safer than where they're coming from. So we try to intercede, and what we do is when we take them in through a safe house system, we make sure they finish high school, we make sure that they get a job and keep a job, and that we help prepare them for the stability they need and also the transition they need to make back into community as young adults.
I love it. That's excellent. And for those of you who are watching, who are listening as a download, I posted the link in the Facebook chat, but the name of the website, if you want to donate to Beulah's Place, is Beulah's Place, BEULAHS Place, PLACE.org. If you'd like to donate to Beulah's Place, please go there to BeulahsPlace.org and check out the website, check out ways that you can donate and help them out. We're up against a commercial break. I'm going to take a 3-minute commercial break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the book, A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue, and talk about why you wrote the book and what's inside this book is just amazing. So I want you to talk a little bit about that when we come back in about 2 minutes. How about that? Oh, did I lose you? You still there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, we'll be right. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. We are talking to Andi Buerger. She is the executive director of Beulah's Place, and she is also the author of the brand new book, A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Don't just pass the IRS exams. Why not pass them all and get a solid tax education too? Visit irsexams.school and let the Tax Mama staff get you started today. All our live and self-study tax courses offer you the convenience to study online on your own time and have everything you need to succeed. Tax Mama teaches you tax law, practice, and representation from the ground up. That's irsexams.school. Why wait? Get enrolled today in our premium course or the self-study class. That's irsexams.school. It's way more than just a review course. It will improve your entire future.
You're listening to the SHR Media Network. Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics,
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
and all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
And we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. My guest this hour is Andi Buerger. She's the executive director of Beulah's Place and the author of the brand new book, A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue. If you are watching this via Facebook Live, I'm showing you a copy of the cover. It's a beautiful cover. You should go pick it up you can pick it up at the Beulah's Place website or at Amazon.com, if I'm not mistaken. Is there anywhere else that I'm not mentioning, Andi, that they could pick up the book?
No, ma'am. It is Amazon.com. They can get the paperback or Kindle version, and 45% of all proceeds go back to victims of child abuse and sex trafficking.
Okay, excellent. So aside from that wonderful fact that 45% of the proceeds go to victims of sex trafficking, child sex trafficking, what's in the book? Why did you write the book?
The book became, I lived my life not to write the book, but the book came out of my living my life, so to speak. And one reason was for such a time as this, Melanie. Right now, we, again, have to act. We have to get a handle on this epidemic of depravity in this country. And I felt by sharing a little bit of my story in there, not everything's in there, that would be like several more books, but a little bit of my story. And also, 4 of the stories of teens that my husband and I actually rescued off the streets. One had a trafficking situation, the other 3 for different reasons, but it shows who these kids really are. They're not criminals by choice. They're not criminals, the ones that we rescued. They've just been forced into either drug trafficking or prostitution or other things, or simply they've been forced out of any family system, where they're safe. And so I was hoping that in writing this, it will help people understand when you walk by a teen on the street, for example, maybe they have piercings or tattoos, or they don't look like the kid you think they should look like. It doesn't mean that they're trouble or that, they don't have needs, or that they are rebellious. They could be very lost in your community, just like they're lost in my community. So part of it was to create awareness, and also as you get to the end, the hope of what we can do with the situation. I mean, think about it. If I survived and I can be successful and I can have a wonderfully healthy marriage, not perfect in any way, but just healthy in my life, then these other folks that have been victimized can as well. I've even received a lot of messages from people that were victimized, and they're now 40, 50, 60, 70 years old, and they're like, wow, somebody finally said what it was really like, or finally somebody said something that helped me with my healing. So it's inspiration for that as well. And then we also give an update on the 4 stories in there about where they are today.
Yeah, the beginning of the book, I was looking at the beginning of the book, and the beginning of the book starts off with all these wonderful dedications. I was telling Andi off air that when I was looking at the beginning of the book, I said I wanted to cry just looking at the dedications. Normally a book says, it's like dedications, 2 or 3 lines, dedicated to my wife, dedicated to my husband, blah, blah. Thanks for my family for putting up with me while I was writing this or whatever. Right? Not this. I mean, this is 3 or 4 pages of dedications, and each dedication is just, you can tell, is just really heartfelt, and that each person had some part in this book, not writing the book itself, but some part in its creation. And I just thought, wow, that's amazing. And then, of course, you get into you talk about your story, which we just talked about, and then the stories of several other people in the book. And tell us a bit about that.
Sure. So I am so proud. These are all young women that we rescued. The boys are a little harder to come forward and say I've been hurt, and they definitely didn't want to share their stories, which I totally understand. But these gals were pretty courageous. And so, for example, one of the gals whose father was the violator from the time she was like 5 years old to maybe 10 or 12. And the mother, divorced the father, became just a raging alcoholic, and found another gentleman to be with. And so she left her daughter home alone with frozen dinners in the freezer, enough for 6 days, at a time. And so from 12 to 16, this young gal was left to her own self. And the only time the mother would come home is when she tried to take her life. And so the mother was more interested in the boyfriend who she eventually married, who didn't like kids, than she was in her own daughter. Then she wasn't helping her recover or to get through what had happened. And so what's going to happen to a young girl that age? Well, eventually someone's going to invite her to a party, or she's going to go walking, and that's exactly what happened. She never chose drugs, but they kind of chose her because she got involved, with someone who said, hey, you want to feel good? Of course, what victim doesn't want to feel good? What victim doesn't want to forget? And so the great news, though, well, I'm going to say that for your listeners, but the great news is she did get through the process, and I'll just say that she's doing very well. But it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of pain for anyone who's been violated or victimized. One of the other stories, one of the gals, was the mother was taken away before she was a toddler even, for hurting her and violating her, and she was left with an abusive father who married an abusive stepmother. And so whenever the girl tried to run, she was sent back by law enforcement, by well-meaning people, by people who didn't take the time to really investigate what was really going on in that family, or to understand why she was angry, why she was lashing out every time she got sent back. So there's a couple other stories, but at the end, readers will learn where these girls are now, how well they're doing. We've had 5 go to college from our program already. And so, these are the kids that are bright and they're hardworking. They just didn't have any other options to survive other than the street. And when we get them, they're barely surviving, if at all.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And one of the things that you'll find in the book too, and after the dedications, you find several people, and actually I think this might even be before the dedications, where people have commented on the book and how the book has helped them, how the writing has helped them. And I've written forwards for books before, and my guess is that they got an advanced copy of the book and were able to comment on how they felt about the book. And again, usually there is maybe 1 or 2 comments in the foreword where people, will write a little blurb about the book. Not in this book. In this book, again, there's 3 or 4 pages of people talking about the way in which the book is written, and how the contents of the book has helped the people with what's going on in their lives, because it happens so way more. It shouldn't happen to one person, but it's happened to so many people, and families of people that this has happened to. They've written about how the book has impacted them. I strongly advise you to pick it up.
Thank you so much. And yes, the writing is incredible. I have to tell you, my writer, Kay Ferris, did an amazing job with a tough subject, because I had all this content from years ago when I spoke, these things and just all over. And she managed to organize it and put it into a story form that reads well. There's nothing graphic or gritty, but it gives you enough to know what's happening. And, the end result was just amazing. So I can't thank her enough. But the other part of it is, like you said, one of the endorsements, so to speak, is from a mom who battled the DA's office, that mental health professionals, trying to get help for her son, just the struggle to help any of these kids, came from a good family, but just needed some mental health assistance and got into some things that were tough and hit the streets because that's just where he was at the time. And the battle that even really great parents have raising a teenager, right? So imagine when something goes sideways. I don't know if any of your listeners have ever had a kid go sideways, but it happens. And when they have to hit the street, even if it's not from trafficking, it's very dangerous for them.
It is very dangerous for them. So, but we're up against the close of the show. Before we go, I want you to tell the audience how they can donate to Beulah's Place, how they can help out, and also where to get the book, and remind the audience that 45% of the proceeds go to help victims of child sex trafficking. But tell us about how we can help out Beulah's Place and where we can get the book.
Okay, great. BeulahsPlace.org, BEULAHS place.org. You can donate safely online. It costs us about $1,200 to $1,500 per teen to put them through our program and get them back into community. We are all volunteers for 11 years. Not one person gets paid, so it all goes to the kids. It's safe to donate online, and there's also an address if you prefer to send a check, which we would totally appreciate. As far as the book goes, you can get that on Amazon.com in paperback or in Kindle ebook version. And again, 45% goes to victims of child sex trafficking and child abuse. We want to give back to those that have been hurt, and it's just the way that we're choosing to do it. It also helps Beulah's Place as well. We bought a building. We're setting up a pilot program for a drop-in shelter specifically designed for at-risk homeless teens, and we need to finish paying that off by July, so every dollar helps.
Oh, I love it. And if someone wants to contact you to have you speak or something like that, or follow you on social media, how can they do that?
Absolutely. They can call the number that is on the website, which is 541-526-0445. And I will definitely get back to them. I would love to do that. Social media at Beulah's Place for Facebook. I believe also at... I'm not a very techno person, you guys. I'm sorry, but Twitter, we have a Twitter account as well, Instagram and LinkedIn. And then I have renamed the organization I co-founded last year with my great friend Blanquit, they call him, and it is Voices Against Trafficking. So if you are a voice and you are against trafficking, we are going to have some things coming in the future where you can participate. You don't have to be a congressperson, although we've had several amazing ones step up. Nonpartisan to help us, but you can be a voice against trafficking right from where you're at.
I love it. Excellent. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing your story with us and sharing your book with us. I hope the book does amazing. I'm sure that it will. And
thank you so much.
And please do come back.
There.
Oh, go ahead.
I would love to come back. Sorry, there was a little echo there.
No, go ahead. And what were you going to say to everyone out there?
I was going to say thank you to everyone out there for listening, for supporting, for praying, for donating, for everything, because there is a child out there who is hoping to God that someone will find them.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you next week at CPAC.
You certainly will.
All right. I want to thank everybody who's listening to the show today. Doug, my unpaid publicist, thank you so much for being in the Facey Chat today. Carol and Jeff and a host of other people. Let me see if I can go back and thank some more folks. And Mike, and who else was there today? Chris Chase, Ron Edwards of Ron Edwards Notebook. Thank you so much to Chris Chase, a childhood friend. He sat behind me in homeroom in high school. That's how long we've been friends. Dr. Christopher Chase, thank you so much for showing up. To Carlo, my cousin, thank you. I want to thank everybody for listening, and all of you who are listening via download and via SHR Media. Thank you so much for supporting the show. And I would be remiss if I did not thank the one and only Eva Rosenberg, Tax Mama. If you want to learn everything you need to know about passing the tax exam, go to irsexams.school and check out Tax Mama's course. She will help you get through it in an amazing way. And I want you all to remember, finally, that all of this is important because, after all, It's your money. Have a fantastic weekend.
To me, there are no greater patriots in America's long history than the black citizens who are willing to die for a nation that was denying them their rights.
Mike Bloomberg is the only Democratic presidential candidate that has a real plan to fight for those sacrifices that have been taken for granted for far too long.
And I've got to think it was in hopes that their service and sacrifice might redeem those rights for their children and grandchildren.
Introducing the Greenwood Initiative, a bold new plan to help black Americans create generational wealth.
1, we will help 1 million more black families buy a house. 2, we will double the number of black-owned businesses. 3, we will help black families triple their wealth over the next 10 years to an all-time high. Mike will get it done. Visit MikeForBlackAmerica.com to learn more. They are concrete proposals that we can afford and that we can get done, and we will.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.